Hey everybody, I'm Rick Beato. On today's Everything Music, it's What Makes This Song Great, episode 65. The band is Stone Temple Pilots and the song is Interstate Love Songs. Coming up next. Interstate Love Song was the third single off Stone Temple Pilots' second record entitled Purple, which came out in the summer of 1994. The song was produced by Brendan O'Brien and it was engineered by Nick DiDia. It's one of my favorite Stone Temple Pilot records. It was really a great record for that era, a really important record. And Stone Temple Pilots is musically one of the most interesting bands from the era. Now, would I call them a grunge band? I don't know if I would. I don't necessarily consider them a grunge band. They were not from Seattle, and they have a different style than most grunge bands, although some of their songs are grunge songs. They have riffs like grunge songs, but this isn't one of them. This is really a great song. It's got really interesting chord changes, and it's got a great intro riff. Let's check it out. Okay, so this is my second STP video I've done. Now, this song is actually very simple in the fact that it has only a couple sections to it. But what's going on in them is actually really hip and complex. Things that they borrow from really progressive rock and fusion. I remember one time Dean DeLeo was they were playing Stone Temple Pilots years ago. I went to see him play here in Atlanta, and during one of his solos, he quoted the Alan Holdsworth solo, the intro to In the Dead of Night, during one of their songs. So you can see where his influences come from. That's off the first UK record. But I want to talk about Robert DeLeo's bass line here, because he's got really sophisticated parts. He moves all around, borrows from Motown, borrows from fusion, and uses a lot of really hip bass moves. Check it out. Listen. Right here. Right there on the E chord. So he does a duh on the C sharp minor. Then I love he does it. He goes down to the fifth. But then here he does it E major triad there on the E chord. He fills in ba do da do, and then he goes down to the A chord. Listen. Wow, listen to it soloed. Do 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 da da do da da do do do. Even though it's a G sharp suspended to G sharp major change, he's using the G sharp major arpeggio. It's great. Do da do 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 do. I'm a former upright player. Those are the type of lines that you would play if you were a jazz player playing an upright bass. That actually works easier when you're playing upright and coming back across the strings like that. So I would bet that Robert was an upright bass player originally. Let me solo the intro slide guitar. It's really a great sound. It's got a beautiful ambience on it. Check it out. It continues on. And right there, he does another arpeggio on the A to E. He's using A major triad. 2, 3, 4, and then that's really hip. Listen. This part's great. I love that. That slide. This is totally out of the Geddy Lee, Chris Squire, plus some fusion bass playing school. Check it out. Play along. The guitar riff on the song is also a classic. Let me play along with it. I love the droning on the open string. And that sus chord there, that E sus, and then it walks. Again. The verse chords are also really hip and really unusual. Check them out. Right here. Okay, so he's going C sharp minor, then A flat over C, first inversion major chord. The third chord is really an inverted dominant chord. It's really like a D flat 7 with a B in the bass, or C flat in the bass. D flat 7 in third inversion. Then to B flat half diminished, or minor 7 flat 5, and then to A sus 2, and then let's listen to the guitar solo. Next, let's talk about the verse vocal. I'm going to play the vocal solo so you can hear the sound of it, and then we'll talk about the melody.
Waiting on a Sunday afternoon for what I read between the lines. Your lies.
Okay, let's talk about the melody for a second. So, this is a chord tone based melody, and it's pretty straight ahead until you get to the third chord. So he starts out waiting. He starts on the root of the C sharp minor on a Sunday afternoon, and on this second chord, the A flat with the C in the bass, he's going. You can see it's right in the chord shape, the notes of the melody. But then he goes on this third chord, which to the ear, you don't realize there's a real dissonant melody part. He goes, for what I read between the da, 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 da. And then he returns back into the chord progression, lines, from the 7th to the flat 3rd of that B flat half diminished chord. And then he goes, the lies, from the 5th to the 3rd to the 2nd, and that's harmonized with the, to give you this A Lydian sound. The melody just opens up right there. It's really beautiful. That's also where there's a 2/4 bar, which is really kind of cool. Let's check this part out. Right here. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you go back to the E section, and then back to the verse. Same melody. Then you got... That's just really weird. I mean, da, 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 da. It goes by so fast that you don't really notice it. Most people, I think, think the chord progression is going. I think people think that may be the chord or something, but this is really the voicing that happens now. It's a very interesting chord progression. Great, really, really interesting writing. I want to point out, too, what's going on in the drums. This is a pretty straight-ahead drum part, but the drums sound killer. Nick DeLeo is a phenomenally great engineer, and Brendan O'Brien mixes these records, and Brendan is a great engineer as well, and a great producer, and they just sound so fat. I mean, it's like the kick drum, everything. You hear the drums are totally natural sounding. They're not gated. You don't hear that. You hear all those the ghost notes on the snare, and it's just really, really well done. That's the thing about all their records. All the records Brendan did in the 90s through the 2000s are just incredibly great sounding. All the STP records sound killer, and the playing's great. Listen to the drums and bass together. I mean, this is just a great rhythm section. Check it out. It's so heavy, and then when you get to the verse, check it out. I love all that ring on the snare. It sounds so good. It's so natural. Once again, killer bass playing. When he's going in the bass. Okay, let me talk about what's great about this chorus. First of all, the chord progression is really great, but the melody is incredibly strong. Let's check it out. Right here. And then we're back to the riff. The thing that really makes the hook work in the chorus, that makes the song great, is really when it goes to that G sharp or A flat sus4, and how he outlines the chord and the melody there. This is what I'm talking about here. Right there, that second half of the chorus. And then he's outlining this, perfectly outlining this sus chord to the resolution, and then goes to the, he goes right through that sharp 4, the A Lydian, because that's the 4 chord. We're in E major here, right? Even though we're starting on the 6, 1, 4 to the 5 of 6 as the secondary dominant, but resolving back to 4. That's the thing that's really interesting about it. That 5 of 6 chord, 5, 7 of 6 secondary dominant chord, resolves back to 4 instead of to 6. And I think that really makes the whole song right there. That's really what grabs your ear, that hook. A couple other things to note about the song. There is no real bridge in the song. There's a little tag section that kind of functions like a bridge. There's a really cool melody line in this last verse. I love that. And then this. repeats again. Okay, this. I always thought that was weird, the timing of that. It's cool. Listen. It's almost like that they are just playing it, and that's where they decided to go with it, right? If we tap it out. Almost turns the time around. Love it. And then we're into the last chorus. So it goes through the final chorus, and then we just go back to the riff for the ending. It's great. 2, 3, 4. And boom, bop, There you have it. Now, I want to just say one thing about this song. So this was recorded here in Atlanta at a studio that no longer exists called Southern Tracks. I got to work in Southern Tracks one time in the year 2000. I did a record there for about a month, and it was an incredibly great studio. Brendan O'Brien did most of his records, at least mixed the records that he did, almost all at Southern Tracks. This one, most of this record was tracked at Southern Tracks right here in Atlanta. And the idea of the Interstate Love song has something to do, I believe that when I heard it at the time, that them talking about it, that Scott or Robert had the idea while they were driving down I-85, which is one of the main interstates here in Atlanta. And I have real fond memories of this studio, which was an incredibly wonderful place. And when I hear those drum sounds, it's that Southern Tracks sound. And when you hear any of Brendan's records, you know, you can recognize it. The ones that were recorded at Southern Tracks, you hear that room sound, and it's just, yeah, it sounds amazing. That's all for now. Please subscribe here to my Everything Music YouTube channel. Remember to ring the bell if you're a new subscriber. If you're interested in the Beato book or anything in my store to support the channel, you can go to my website at www.rickbeato.com. Follow me on Instagram at rickbeato1. I post a lot of different stuff on there, a lot of different music stuff, a lot more guitar playing. And if you want to support the channel even more, you can become a member of the Beato Club. Thanks so much for watching.